Hi everyone. Hello from Kalyani and Ankita.
Hi.
Guys, Ankita is very happy because her babies are going to write the exam, the CUET PG batch.
Yes.
Ankita is in charge of their. Ankita, tell them how proud you are.
Yes. So this time and almost every time we do an extensive and intensive revision for them. We did almost 78 papers in live sessions. We practiced papers from various exams in live sessions. We did mock tests, quizzes, polls, everything. Like live session quizzes. We covered an extensive area of topics, like starting from Indian detectives in Indian literature to graphic novels. We did theory, criticism, current affairs, awards, everything,
Okay,
everything.
okay. She is so excited. We are excited about all our amazing students of all batches. You're all doing so much hard work. And eventually, all of you who are writing all these exams are going to be assistant professors, you're going to be heads of departments, you're going to be vice chancellors. Wow, this is so exciting. So today's session is again on Kerala PSC Assistant Professor exam. And the other day, first day, we were talking about descriptive writing. Then we talked about cultural studies a little bit. Today, we are going to talk about linguistics and ELT. Now, they have a very exhaustive syllabus for linguistics and ELT. Uh, just general terms, but it can be considered as exhaustive. Indo-European family of languages. So they can expect questions from Old English, Middle English, Modern English, and all contemporary Englishes. Then phonetics and phonology, that is the next area, where they have general phonetics, phonetic transcription, stress intonation. Morphology is there, traditional grammar, modern grammar, form class words, function class words, fallacies, caesure, structuralism. Then syntax is there, PS grammar, TG grammar, deep structure, surface structure, Noam Chomsky's trace theory, case grammar, systemic stratification and tag, mimic semantics, lexical semantics, metaphor, figures of speech, linguistics, psycholinguistics, sociolinguistics. So that is in general what you have to study. But some of you might be people who are struggling with linguistics. So my heart goes out to those people who struggle with linguistics, because linguistics is a science. Sometimes we don't get the hang of it. Even very brilliant students struggle. But I always say linguistics is a very good subject, it's a very interesting subject. We should all know it. Today, Ankita, I think I will start with an overview of linguistics and ELT, because
Okay.
sometimes when I explain the story,
Hmm.
things will become even clearer.
Yes.
I suppose all of you know that linguistics began as grammar, studying the use of language in text. It studied the philosophy of language. When I teach linguistics in for NET, I have introduced a chapter called Philosophy of Linguistics. Our own Indians had a lot of early linguistic traditions. We all know that Panini's Ashtadhyayi is the most ancient text in linguistics in India, with so many grammar, thousands of grammar rules, and study of words, sounds, etc., are analyzed in Panini. So there are meta-linguistic elements in Panini, and Panini has influenced modern grammar. Later on in the colonial period, William Jones and others have, studied Sanskrit and Indian linguistic traditions, and understood that Western linguistic traditions began from here. Sanskrit was considered to be the mother language by William Jones. Well, in the medieval period, Latin predominated all over Europe, in England also. Latin predominated. A lot of people wrote Latin grammar, Latin rhetoric, Latin logic, all this predominated, and it was very much interspersed with religious studies also. Exegesis or interpretation of the religious text was more bordering on linguistics. Well, at that time, there was no linguistics as such. The study of linguistics came only much, much, much later in the 20th century. In the 19th, till the 19th century, I think it was called philology. Modern scientific linguistics came with Leonard Bloomfield and Saussure, and before that, Franz Bopp and Jacob Grimm and Franz Boas, sorry, Jacob Grimm and others. In the beginning of linguistics, we can see that there was a comparative method. Franz Boas, the teacher of Claude Lévi-Strauss, who died in Claude Lévi-Strauss' arms, he studied Native American languages. And the Indo-European family was discovered because there were common factors in many languages. Pita in Sanskrit is father and pater, and so such connections were seen. So the idea of language families emerged only in the 19th century. And there was a study of how sounds changed. In the 15th century, there was a great vowel shift. There's a study of Grimm's law, Werner's law, Ablaut, Umlaut. There was a study of the Proto-Indo-European. And from the existing languages, from modern languages, the Proto-Indo-European language was constructed. We don't know that language otherwise. And the scientific study of languages emerged as a result of all this in the 20th century. As all of you might know, Ferdinand de Saussure is considered as the father of modern linguistics. But one of my teachers of linguistics has said Leonard Bloomfield is equally, inspiring, and he has also contributed equally. Well, there might be some politics between these two and their images. So it is Saussure that revolutionized linguistics with the understanding of langue and parole. Langue is the language system, whereas parole is the individual expression of langue. It changes from person to person, individual to individual. Ankita, my favorite example is that Indian cows cry imba, while British cows cry moo. So if a British cow meets an Indian cow, will they be able to communicate? Because the parole is different. However, the langue is the same. Like that, I feel crows from different places are speaking a different car language. So, langue and parole. Then another thing that Saussure talked about is the diachronic and the synchronic. Before Saussure, everybody studied language in a diachronic manner or a historical manner. But it is Saussure who developed the synchronic approach to language. The scientific, these are all basic foundations of scientific approach to language. Saussure was proving that language actually constructs the world. Language constructs thought. It is not the other way. Before Saussure, it was believed that language is a reflection of the world. Language is just reflecting the world. But here is Saussure describing language and showing that language is defining the world. After Saussure and his structuralist approach to language, I think the next most important step in language, the turn in language, is the coming of the generative language in the 1950s. Generation is an idea that came from mathematics, and as all of you know, Noam Chomsky is the pioneer of generative grammar. Transformational generative grammar eventually came from his theories. His pioneering work, as all of you know, is Syntactic Structures, published in 1957, the same year as Myth Criticism was started by Northrop Frye. Anatomy of Criticism was also in the same year. So generative grammar is the idea that language is not an accidental thing. Language did not accidentally come into being. Language is generated by rules. So what are the rules? They try to understand by going back from language to the rules. They study language, they analyze language, they break down language. Before Chomsky, there was Leonard Bloomfield who developed IC analysis, immediate constituent analysis. So they go down to the basic structures. So this is like structuralism, the idea that a whole will have units. You go down from the whole, you break down the whole and go to the units. This is a very scientific approach because this is what we see in chemistry and other electrolysis and such. Physics and chemistry also does the same thing. So Chomsky was under the impression that there is a universal grammar that we all have, the same capacity for language. He talked about competence versus performance, which is like langue versus parole. And he also talked about language acquisition device, or LAD. Now, before Chomsky, there is cognitivism and behaviorism. Cognitivism is the understanding that language generates from inside your head only, whereas behaviorism understands that language develops from our behaviors, from our interactions. Noam Chomsky shifted from behaviorism to mentalism. He understood language in a cognitive manner. He understood that language comes from inside us, not from the society, but from inside us. So in Chomsky, we see that linguistics is combining with psychology, it is combining with philosophy and other disciplines. So it is a more comprehensive mathematics. It's a more comprehensive view of linguistics that developed at this time. Well, a lot of people who came after Chomsky did not agree with Chomsky. A lot of competing methods developed after Chomsky, the Post-Chomskyans. From here, we see the beginnings of ELT also. Functional linguistics, or what is called systemic functional linguistics, is developed by M.A.K. Halliday. That is a post-Chomskyan approach. M.A.K. Halliday talks about the social construction of language, the social semiotic of language, how a language emerges not only from within your head, but also from interpersonal relations and interpersonal communication, and also it's textual and things like that. Cognitive linguistics still remained. Georg Lakoff, George or Georg, I think. Lakoff is a very important figure in cognitive linguistics because there are conceptual structures. So our main thing is to understand this map of linguistics, who is placed where, what are the important theories, and actually it is so interesting. Linguistics is so much deeply connected with history, with literary theory. If you know linguistics, you will never be able to feel bored with it because it makes so much sense. I remember how in BA level we were all I was struggling at least because I did not understand the context of linguistics. Why do you have to memorize loan words, and why do you have to memorize all those essays? But when you understand how things developed, it makes so much sense. So in our paid course, we will try to help you understand like that. We have very good specialists from linguistics who are working with us now. And our encyclopedia of linguistics is also on the way. I think a momentous change in linguistics as a discipline came with sociolinguistics. William Labov studied the language changes. Language change is a concept that he developed, and he studied the language changes that happen in Martha's Vineyard near New York. And that is from the time when we began to understand that language change is not again arbitrary. Language change can be understood in terms of patterns. Language change is not just happening for no reason. It can be predicted, and there is a reason why language is changing like this. So that is very exciting. That actually revolutionized the study of linguistics. William Labov is the father of sociolinguistics. Another interesting person that I talk about in my classes, whom everybody knows, is Del Hymes. Del Hymes is the propounder of what is called communicative competence. While Noam Chomsky was talking about how language emerges from inside your head, here is Del Hymes talking about how language emerges from communication. Language emerges from the actual practice, and what you need is communicative competence. That's a very interesting idea. Talk about actual practice of language. There is a whole branch of linguistics called pragmatics, stylistics. These are all unique branches of linguistics. In pragmatics, we all know about speech act theory. John Searle and J.L. Austin talked about speech act theory, implicature. It is interesting because when we study all this in linguistics, we'll be able to connect it with dhvani, for example. Implicature is like dhvani. suggestion of meaning. So how in the speech act, you are not all necessarily saying things, you are suggesting, and more meanings are coming into play there. It is so beautiful. There is such a beautiful integration of linguistics and history and literary theory and criticism, both Eastern and Western. It is sad that in our departments, people don't see that connection very much, because the teacher who teaches linguistics does not usually know history or literary theory like that. There is a divide, there is a separation. It is good that in our exams they're asking all this, so that it will make more sense when we study all this together. So there are so many new approaches these days, like psycholinguistics, neurolinguistics, computational linguistics, to such a level that people are talking about forensic linguistics, corpus linguistics. What are these called? These are not actually pragmatic linguistics, it is applied linguistics. And in applied linguistics, we also have translation, you also have AI, you also have language education, then special needs. So it is a comprehensive cultural studies that linguistics is. If you study linguistics in the right way, there is nothing in social sciences that cannot be connected with linguistics, including literary theory. So it is with that perspective that I have been studying linguistics of late, and I've been teaching also like that. When we go into ELT, there are many approaches that you might know, like grammar translation method. That's a very old method. Nobody follows it now because you're just translating from the other language. So it's an old method. Then in the early 20th century, there emerged the direct method, where translation is avoided and you study only, you are exposed only to the target language. In ELT, direct method means directly target language, nothing else. So it is a very natural way of imbibing language, and it's an immersive way of imbibing language. So after grammar translation method and then direct method, there emerged audiolingual method. It was during the Second World War period that audiolingual method emerged, and it came after the emergence of structural linguistics, if I'm right. Audiolingual method had its limitations. One limitation is that it was just a repetition of drills. Language becomes a habit through repetition. So it is rather mechanical, so it was not considered very great. The exciting change in linguistics, as I already told you, came with Del Hymes and communicative language learning and communicative competence. That is 1970s, communicative language. How communication can help us. And today also, if we are all English language trainers, we would follow the communicative approach. Communicate more and more and more, and you will gain fluency. Real life interaction is what you need. So we are still following that. Now, in many departments or in some special sectors, we might also employ task-based language learning, using language, learning language through tasks. So that also project-based learning kind of. All these are kind of traditional methods or old-fashioned methods. There is an Indian, I think he is in Singapore or America, Kumara Vadivelu. I have read about him and also talked about him in some paper. He talked about post-method approach. No, one single method is not needed. You create a mix of these things. And then in linguistics, it is not only pragmatics and applied linguistics. You have the whole area of the sound. You have phonetics and phonology, pronunciation of sounds. And what are the different, these are all, the applied linguistics is macro linguistics, larger picture. Whereas micro linguistics is phonetics, phonology, morphology. It's easy to remember. Phonetics is the sound itself. Phonology is the experience of the sound and production of the sound. Then understanding of the sound. Then morphology is the word. Then syntax is the sentence. Then semantics is the meaning. Pragmatics is the use. These are all in micro linguistics. Then we have new approaches like discourse analysis in linguistics. Discourse analysis is very important these days in business studies also. Linguistics connects with business studies because how user experience is gauged, how user experience is created, language has a big role. So UX writing, UX experience, these are all very important these days, where discourse analysis, if you know, if you study, you can get jobs there and all. So ELT and linguistics have completely been incorporated into business studies also. This is the larger picture of linguistics that we have today. We have an easy reference to, a dictionary of linguistics, which contains all the usages and all the terms. It is a brilliant small book. And also we have the HSST linguistics book coming out, and we have the easy handbook on linguistics at Balat. All these are our go-to books. They contain a lot of things here. I can ask you some random questions from here if you want, just to help you remember and to understand. What is cloud database? Now, I didn't mention the importance of AI and digital technology in linguistics. Cloud database and questions like that can come these days in linguistics. What is code in algorithm? What is command line interface? What is command shell? Such questions can also come because these are all later developments. Then, do you know what is activation in language processing? It is considered an important metaphor in the models of language processing. What is that? Just randomly telling you things. In all exams, they ask, what is the difference between Creole and Pidgin? What is jargon? What is idiolect? Like that, many questions they ask. What is babbling? That recently they asked, I think, all these questions, such kind of questions also. So, what is homonym? What is polysemy? What is metonymy? What is lexical semantics? What is lexical gap? Lexeme, things like that. And there are dyslexia, dyscalculia, language aphasia, language disorders. Then when it comes to grammar, what is collocation? Terms like that also can be asked. Reduplication, word formation, aspects of word formation, clipping, conversion, borrowing, compounding, blending, acronyms, all these are word formations. Sometimes they ask questions from loan words. Which of the following words is derived from Arabic? Which of the following words is derived from Hindi? Like that they can ask. Phonotactics, tag me mix, questions like that. What is minimal pair? I remember many of these questions have been asked. So this is a small, very effective book if you want. Now let us go into some simple questions, Ankita. We don't want to go into all the in-depth questions because this is only a YouTube live. We'll be covering a lot of things with experts in our paid course also. Many of the students who are listening to us now are from the paid course also. So I will just share my screen, and I'm sure a lot of people who are not even doing can you see the entire screen?
Yes, yes.
People who are not even doing the Kerala PSC preparation will be listening to us. So let us go and check out very basic questions today.
Okay.
Ankita, did you like the overview that I gave? I tried to be
Yes.
comprehensive as much as I could.
And it was giving a very clear, order, like what happened after what, how it started, the major events and authors. Yes.
It's very important. I took tuitions from one of my colleagues who is an expert and PhD in linguistics. I have been taking a lot of effort to study linguistics. Yeah, that's right. Okay, that's how I got the story very clearly like that. Okay, Ankita, over to you.
So, who is the linguist who introduced structuralism in modern linguistics? Is it Bloomfield? Is it Ferdinand de Saussure? Is it Noam Chomsky or Sapir? So it is obviously Ferdinand de Saussure, who introduced structuralism in modern linguistics. Saussure is also known as the father of modern linguistics. He talked about langue and parole, right? Langue as the abstract system of language and parole as the individual use of that language. So Saussure is a very important figure in modern linguistics. Next, we have deep structure and surface structure. Their concepts in what? In structural grammar, in transformational generative grammar, case grammar, or functional grammar. Their concepts from transformational generative grammar. So deep structure refers to the underlying semantic meaning, and the surface structure, it refers to the actual spoken or written sentences. And Noam Chomsky talked about it. Next, we have the trace theory. Who proposed the trace theory in linguistics? Was it Bloomfield, Saussure, Chomsky, or Halliday? It was Noam Chomsky who proposed the trace theory in linguistics. This theory was primarily started from 1970s onwards, and it's a component of transformational generative grammar which explains what happens when a word or a phrase moves from its original position to a new one. That's what this theory is about. Trace theory of Noam Chomsky. Next, which teaching method focuses mainly on translation and grammar rules? We talked about this method just today. Is it direct method, grammar translation method, audio-visual method, or communicative method? There's obviously option B, grammar translation method. It's a very traditional teacher-centered approach to teaching foreign languages by translating between the target language and the native tongue. All right. Next, learning through stimulus, a response, and reinforcement is associated with what? Is it behaviorism, constructivism, cognitism, or humanism? It is behaviorism. So behaviorism in linguistics was very dominant from 1930s to 50s, and it was pioneered by B.F. Skinner, who views language acquisition as a mechanical process of habit formation, which is driven by imitation, repetition, and positive reinforcement. So along with B.F. Skinner, Ivan Pavlov and John B. Watson are other major theorists of behaviorism.
Wow, that was a few questions that really made sense. Thank you for the explanation. We have to make a massive, we already are making a massive collection of questions to give us practice. We have Dr. Gamit Dalavar, then Elsa Harida Jacob, and people like that, a few others, Indu. They're all, working hard on this, and they're preparing these questions, and it's being done. So the materials are ready, the quizzes are ready, and we are ready. People have joined in large numbers in the course. If there is anybody out there who does not know about it, you know about it now. We have courses for Kerala Assistant Professor Exam, Karnataka Assistant Professor Exam, MP Assistant Professor Exam, and also Karnataka PU Lecturer Exam. Apart from NET and other exam, CUET, UG also is going on. So please take a look at our courses and join without wasting time, so that you will be able to get the maximum benefit out of it. And you can also buy our books, get in touch with us to know more details. Thank you very much, and have a beautiful evening. We'll be back with more tomorrow.
Yes.
Thank you, Ankita. Thank you, everyone.